He has wiped out by his grace through faith in Christ your every sin, past, present, future.
Christian hedonist is somebody who says that my greatest joy, my greatest good is God. And therefore, I will pursue that joy and I will pursue that God above all else. So God's glorified and I'm satisfied.
You are now listening to the Pastor Discussions podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 32 of the Pastor Discussions podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Joe, and this is your weekly conversation on doctrine, faith, and the Christian life.
That's right. It's Monday, y'all.
Hey, he said
we got scolded.
He said it was in love, though.
Well, I know it is, and
and you're thankful.
I am thankful.
Yeah.
I just don't agree. We're the most northern Southerners you could ever imagine. Yow. Yow.
So you want to say
yow.
It wrong. You want to say it wrong.
It's yow. Good morning. It's Monday, yow. That's it. So Chris,
what do the two L's stand for then? And what does the YA stand for if you're going to put the apostrophe in between the two?
Because it's like, yeah.
Yeah. So what are the two words?
Hey, yeah. Yeah, all of ya. It's a East Coast thing. Yeah. Hey, you over there. I don't know. I'm making it up now just to make excuses for my poor spelling of abbreviated, or it's not even abbreviated. It's conjunctions of two words into a Southern word that's new.
Why, just out of curiosity, in the first place, did you decide to do a Southern word?
So this was sort of like a joke. So I was on a podcast before called the Conversations from the Porch.
Oh, sure.
And the guy that when he would post it, he'd be like, "It's Sunday, y'all," or "It's a Sabbath, y'all." Because we just sort of, anyway. So he'd be like, "It's a Sabbath, y'all." So I was like, okay, well, I'll just take that and steal that from him.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a tribute to them and my time there. But, no, so, if you were in Missouri this last week,
mm-hmm.
and in Missouri, it's not y'all, it's yins.
It's yins?
Yeah, yins.
Mm.
So we found this out firsthand when we moved there because our neighbor was like, "Hey, yins are the Yankees down the road." I was like, what the heck what just happened here? What did they just say to us? Was that an insult? Or come to find out that Yankee is an insult there.
Oh.
If you're called a Yankee, that's an insult. So, so yins is the plural of you all, or the conjunction of you all, or the slang for you all, whatever. So anyway, Chris, all right. So here's the other thing, man. Like Joe was saying before we started recording, like you made that comment in the Pastor Discussions group, which, by the way, if you would like to be a part of, you can go to Pastor Discussions on Facebook and join the group and join the other 5 people that are on there and comment. So anyway, he mentioned something about how I'd spelled it wrong. It's Y apostrophe ALL instead of YA apostrophe LL. And before we started recording, Joe was like, he has no idea how
obsessive you are with grammar and spelling and everything being in its correct spot.
This has been a bad day because I posted something on my blog, and in my haste to type up the word, I can't remember what word it was, but I mixed up 2 words. And I didn't even notice it.
And
so
you posted it,
this is twice I've been corrected on grammar, and just that's unfortunate for me.
So anyway,
it's painful.
Yes, we're thankful for your correction and your
yes, Chris.
So now
as always,
we will fix that on Monday.
Yep, or we'll just adopt it. It's Monday, y'all.
Yeah, man. No, let's not do that.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
How was Missouri?
It was good. It was good to be away with our family, just the 5 of us, and just doing our thing.
Did you stay away from the hill people?
For the most part. I don't think you can avoid them all, though. Like we'd go up to somebody like, wow. Like, did you call them rednecks down there?
We call them hill people.
Hill people.
Yeah,
okay.
they were like, because redneck is different. Like redneck is, they're more like hillbillies.
Yeah,
like the hill people down there are more like hillbillies than rednecks.
They're nothing like, they're just different.
Maybe we ought to do a show on the nuances between redneck, hillbilly, and hill people.
So, for the most part, yeah. I mean, we were staying at a resort that my aunt owns a timeshare and gifted to us.
Yeah,
and it was really nice. And it was in a nicer part, really hilly, single file roads. But so nothing.
What is a single file road?
Like one back
2-lane road.
Yeah, 2-lane.
Okay, I was gonna say single file road. They're like, all right, here's
yeah, I couldn't think of the. I mean, people know people who know
you
me
know what
this.
he meant,
right? But,
you know what he meant.
But I can't ever say the word that I want to in the moment. That's why I mumble so much.
Yeah,
but
there you go.
I can't mumble when we're doing this, so you hear all the stupidity that's going on in my brain as I'm trying to function. But anyway, so we're on a 2-lane road. It's kind of hidden away, and it's on a golf course. So the resort was really nice. They had a private pool and hot tub, and so our kids really enjoyed that. And then there's a couple of things that we did that I was annoyed that we did because they cost a lot of money and they were really crappy.
Yeah.
But then there were some nice things too. Sight and Sound Theater, really awesome. I recommend that for anybody.
Really going to Branson.
Yeah, and I don't like plays and musicals either, and I enjoyed this. It was really good. And then we went to Top of the Rock, and you had suggested that.
Yeah.
And that was amazing, going up there and seeing that, because you sit at the top of, basically it's a bluff.
You sit on the top of a rock.
Exactly. And you look down into the lake, and the sun sets on the west side there.
Yeah.
And then they did a bagpipe thing, and they lit the cannon off, which some guy told us it's going to be really loud. You're going to need to cover your
It's not that bad.
We had, and it went off. I was like, that's not that loud.
Well, granted, you probably shouldn't take advice on decibel levels from me.
Well, but
anyway.
even I was there, and the can went off. I had covered Ian's ears, and it went off. I was like, oh, that wasn't even that
That's
loud.
not bad.
Like it's surprising to probably a little kid, but it wasn't that loud. So, but overall, the trip was really good. We had a good time as a family. So.
Yeah, Top of the Rock is pretty cool. We didn't, believe it or not, we lived in Springfield area for 4 years and never heard of the place before. And it was just when we visited this last time that Jeff took us out there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat.
Yeah. I was glad we went, because that was one of the things that you had suggested that we hadn't planned on going to.
Yeah.
And it got to be one evening. It was on Sunday, and our entire Sunday got all messed up because of a hotel arrangement issue. And then Ian didn't sleep the night. So it just all messed up. And okay, we'll just go out there. And I was glad we did, because it was my favorite thing that we did the whole weekend. So
in the language of Revelation, I have this against you. You did not bring me Big Slice Pizza back.
Okay, so
I asked one thing of you, Joe. One thing on your vacation to bring Big Slice Pizza back to us.
We left Springfield, though, at 8:30 in the morning, and they were not open.
You should have waited.
I should have waited for you. I should have got home at 10 o'clock at night just so I can give you pizza. Michaela was like insistent that we weren't doing that. She's like, I'm not going to smell that pizza in my car all the way home. We're not doing that.
She didn't taste it. She doesn't know.
I know. We did go, we ate pizza. This is going on forever, by the way. We ate pizza at a place at the resort, gave us a coupon to get a free pizza at a place there. I can't remember what it's called, but it was pretty good pizza too.
That's cool.
So.
Yeah, well, Michaela, if you had been on our back porch the night that we got back from Missouri,
it was really good. Big Slice Pizza.
Big Slice Pizza in Springfield, Missouri. If you go to Springfield, go to Big. It's like New York style pizza.
Yeah,
it's awesome. With that tremendously long introduction, who are we talking to today?
Well, the same guy we're talking to last week.
That's right. We're talking to Bobby Kauflin.
Yeah. So we're gonna finish up our conversation with Bob today, and I shouldn't call him that.
I say Bobby within it. It's like an endearing term. I respect the guy.
You should say Robert.
But he's very kind. Robert Kauflin. Yeah. Robert Kauflin is joining us today on the Pastor Discussions podcast. Can you see my nose curling up when I talk like that? It's just snooty and
yeah, exactly.
Which he is not. He's like a very down to earth, really cool guy, and so
really relatable. So
we enjoyed talking.
I need to go to one of his worship intensives.
I know. I've been trying to set that up for. It's
just a long way to go.
Yeah, it's Louisville.
Yeah, it's a long way, 12 hours away from.
No,
anyway, so we're gonna finish our conversation with him, and our conversation last week was aimed at everyone, but more specifically pastors.
Yeah,
and
pastoring worship.
So this week we continued a discussion, and we aimed it more at everyone, any believer, and how music has a role not just in our life as a church members and corporately with the rest of our brothers and sisters, but individually in our everyday lives. So hope you enjoy this. It was really beneficial for us, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be beneficial for you.
It will. All right, well, we're back with Bob Kauflin from Sovereign Grace Ministries and Sovereign Grace Music, and thanks again for joining us for a little bit longer. And this week we're gonna really focus on the role of the congregation in worship. So for last week, we talked about pastors and worship leaders and how they facilitate and shepherd in worshiping through song. And this week, we're going to talk about how the body is involved in that. So with regard to worship and song in particular, what role does the singing of music play in the life of a believer in general?
Well, what role should it play, or what role?
What role should it play? Good clarification.
Okay, no, it's a big distinction. Well, it's interesting that God tells us over 50 times in Scripture to sing. That exhortation is given, and there are. It's kind of assumed Paul assumes in Ephesians 5 and Colossians 3 that we are to be a singing people. We're to sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. He talks in Romans about how he will pray with his spirit. He'll sing with his spirit. And then in Revelation you have all the songs going on. So there is an implication, if not a strong implication, that Christians sing. And your question was, what's the place of it? I think through looking at like Ephesians 5, Colossians 3, especially, and maybe Revelation, singing. Colossians 3:16 says we're to let the word of Christ dwell in us richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. So a lot of things that you can just deduce from that. The role of singing, well, it's to enable the word of Christ to dwell in us richly. How does it do that? Well, singing helps us remember things. Singing helps us feel the truth. It combines an emotional language with didactic language, truth language. Singing helps, so that's the teaching and admonishing aspect. Singing is especially suited for thankfulness. It's why musicals are written. I mean, music is suited for a lot of things. Singing is suited for a lot of things, but especially joy. James says, if anyone is happy, let him sing songs of praise.
Yeah.
So that there is a connection God has made between this overflowing joy that comes to us because Jesus has died in our place and our sins are forgiven and we're adopted into God's family and His Spirit lives within us and we're part of His cosmic plans to bring creation back to order. That's cause for joy. Well, we can shout about it, which is one way to respond, or we can also sing about it. And so singing gives us that opportunity both to express and I would say to elicit that kind of joy. It enables to sing as one, to reflect our unity in the gospel. I don't know if you have corporate readings, corporate confession, corporate responsive readings, whatever. They can be a little difficult because people don't know exactly when to say the words. We're still struggling with that 6 years into our church plan. But hey, singing, everybody's breathing together, everybody's singing together, and it's just this expression of the oneness that we have in Christ. So it enables us to express joy. It enables us to the word of Christ to dwell in us more deeply. And then third, I'd say it kind of anticipates the glory of heaven. Where what do those who are around the throne, who see one seated on the throne and the Lamb, what do? Oh, they just sing. They just. What can we do? What's the appropriate response? When sin's gone, no more tears, no more weeping, no more pain, no more sin. Well, you sing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we'll be singing constantly, but I think our singing here is an anticipation of that day when our hearts will be, unhindered.
Yeah.
When our minds will be, more clear and we'll want to sing to Him.
Well, and there's just the prominence of singing in the picture that we have of heaven in Revelation. I mean, it's what angels do. It's what we will do. And what you don't see is preaching like we think of preaching. There's going to be we won't need to preach because we'll be face to face with Christ. We'll be learning directly from Him face to face. But the singing remains. So there's something transcendent that we do when we sing together as a body, because in a sense, it unites us with all of the other generations of believers in the past. Because in Genesis, when Eve is presented to Adam, there's a good argument to be made that this at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh is a song that Adam sings. You see every great act of God when God brings them safely through the Red Sea, Moses sings. When Mary is told that she will have the Messiah, she responds in song. And even in Philippians, there's a argument that that's an early Christian hymn, the extolling of Christ. And so there's this transcendent thing that we do that connects us with all believers in all generations that we, like you said, we will do in heaven together. And there's something incredibly significant about that aspect of our worship service. Yeah.
Although I wonder if there's going to be preaching in heaven. I think there's going to be, but because when good preaching happens, we can argue about that. But when good preaching happens, it's as though Jesus Himself is speaking to you. Yeah. And I think the way God might work that out is that we'll just be preaching to each other, and it will be so clear that our motive is to exalt Christ, and what we're seeing is exalting Christ, and it's just it's hard to imagine what that's going to be like. Anyway, that's a great point.
So for most conservative believers, you've got these means of grace or spiritual disciplines or whatever you want to call them that, especially here where we're at in the Midwest. So we read our Bibles and we pray and we enjoy fellowship together, like the essentials. We sit under teaching. We go to church when church is open. There's things that we should do, that means of grace, that God grows us. Not a lot of people think of singing as one of those means of grace in which God pours out His Spirit and grows us spiritually. And I've talked to a lot of people who I'm just not a singing person. I just don't really connect with the songs. I'm here for this sermon. Can you maybe speak to why it's a benefit for them and maybe for that person who just doesn't see themselves as a musical person? Like, I've heard that excuse a lot for people who struggle to sing during the church service, or just in general, they don't like music.
Yeah, well, I mean, all the benefits we just enumerated would be among those things I'd say to the person. Second, I'd say, why do you think singing is just for you? Why do you think this is just for your benefit? It's not. You are serving the people around you. You don't know how you might be encouraging the faith of someone who's battling cancer, someone who just lost their child, someone who lost their job, someone who's having relationship difficulties. They see you singing the praises of Jesus Christ, and they're inspired. Why have you never thought of that? Well, it's because we're self-centered. We go to church as consumers a lot of time. There's a book I read years ago. I think it's Worship the Missing Jewel. It was by Alan Burr and Ronald Allen. They ask this question. Or they make this statement. The question is not, has God given you a voice? The question is, has God given you a song? And if you're one of the redeemed, if you're one of those whom Jesus Christ, the Son of God, gave His life for, to redeem you, to purchase your forgiveness, to satisfy the wrath of God, to make you one of God's own, and you are looking forward to eternal pleasures at His right hand, then you have a song to sing. The question is, are you singing it for His glory? I mean, the fact that we benefit from it is like gravy. It's like the add-on, it's the icing. We do. God doesn't give us commands that aren't good for us. But even if it's just to realize, okay, I can give God glory by singing with all my heart. Psalm 108 starts off, my heart is steadfast, O God. I will sing and make melody with all my being. That should give us a clue into, the order of things. My heart steadfast. Okay, what is my heart steadfast in? My heart's steadfast in the fact that God has shown His steadfast love towards me. I know that. I trust in that. That has changed my life. That has changed my perspective. It's changed my future. Therefore, I'm going to sing and make melody with all my being, because I can't contain that.
Yeah.
So, if someone says, well, I don't really feel like singing, I would say, well, you know what? If you sing more, you might have some of your affections deepened as a result of singing, because that's one of the things that singing does. It speaks to our emotions. And I've been riding my car, and I'll sing along with, actually it's kind of awkward, embarrassing. I sing along with the Together for the Gospel live albums, where I'm leading, a group of thousands of men, mostly men, some women, just in singing hymns. And I find that just doing that speaks to my soul. I may feel like, I don't really want to do it. But when I start doing it, I'm affected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so those are some of the things I'd say to people who, say, I'm just not a singer. No, if you're a Christian, you're a singer.
Yeah, I'd just tie it like Colossians 3 and Ephesians 5 both talk about addressing one another or teaching one another.
That's right.
And we do that through song. So when if you're in service and you're refusing to sing, you're refusing a command that's good for us, that God's ordained for us, and you're also, you were saying you can be encouraging to someone by singing. You can also be discouraging to the people around you by refusing to participate or dwelling within that selfishness of I don't like songs. So
and even in Ephesians 4, it says that you be given pastors, evangelists, teachers to equip the saints for the work of ministry. And then in Ephesians 5, we see that one of the works of ministry that we're called to is to sing to one another. Mm-hmm. And so there's not only is there a benefit in the corporate aspect, but what we've found in our home is there's a benefit in our discipleship of our children through song. Yeah. So my 2.5-year-old, I've said this before, but my 2.5-year-old loves "He Will Hold Me Fast." That's her favorite song. So the T4G, "He Will Hold Me Fast," is like a regular on our Alexa playlist for her during breakfast. And we sing it every night before bed. And that gives me opportunities when she wakes up with a bad dream to point her to the source of comfort and security in Jesus Christ, absolutely. Because she knows those lyrics. And those lyrics can be used for instruction of our children. But not only that, like when I'm discouraged, that song is so ingrained into my brain.
That's right.
That it ministers to me in the midst of discouragement. So there's an instructive discipleship tool type of aspect to singing as well that we exercise in the corporate gathering, but has such broader application outside of that corporate gathering. We just sort of have the opportunity to practice it together there and then use it outside of there as well.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten into the whole benefit of raising your children to sing, which I think is,
Why don't you talk about that for a second? Because I think that's really important.
Yeah. It's a tool that God has given us that's so underappreciated because it's just little things over a long period of time, which is a lot of what parenting is. But right now, my grandkids, 3 of my grandkids are living with me because their parents are building a house, and so they're living with us for 9 months. And I'm just loving the opportunities to play music with them. They're young, 6, 4, and 2, I think. But just realizing, while they're here, we can play songs, we can sing songs, and we sing silly songs, Frozen and all that kind of stuff. But we sing Christian songs as well, worship songs as well, because I want them to be a natural part of their life. You don't have to be a good singer. We've got YouTube. We have so many. We have Spotify. We have iTunes Music. We have, Apple Music. We have so many resources available to us that make it so easy to expose our children to singing. And I would, we raised 6 kids. Our oldest is 38, and this is 22 right now. I was probably maybe too particular early on about, they have to sing only Christian songs. I'd probably loosen up on that a little bit. Just getting them to like music is great. But then in the midst of that, showing them the difference between singing songs about Jesus, singing songs to God, and how that's so much better, and how that's different, and how that feeds your soul. And, but I'd just encourage parents with young kids, get music playing in your house, sing songs, just take time to do it. It is so worth the investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a big key that you guys have talked about is make music something that's normal.
Yeah.
Make singing something that's normal. It doesn't have to be specifically hymns and extremely rich content. Like if you limit it to that, then you're also limiting the ability for it to be just a natural part of life and something that we normally do. Like, be protective, and you don't want them listening to things that, are going to probably build towards sin. But we don't have to be so constricted. Like John lets Finley listen to the Beatles. My kids listen to a Kids Bop station,
It's
which
good musical education right there. The Beatles,
right? But
won't hold that against.
But just
have you listened to the Sovereign Grace Kids albums?
No, I haven't. We do Seeds family worship in our home a lot. So just
okay. We've done 5 kids albums. I think they're among the best things that Sovereign Grace Music has done.
awesome.
I will have to check that out. Yeah, I will. So, but just don't be afraid. Like sometimes we're afraid of the culture that we live in. Still be a parent, but if you want music and singing to be a natural part of life, like it should be, and be as rich as it is, you've got to have it in your home in more avenues than just one, and broader than just in one part.
And you've got to sing in order to make that happen. You model that. Your kids are looking to you as a parent.
When else can you act like a complete idiot and they think it's hilarious and it's awesome
in the car, in the house. Yeah. And even I would say, just to parents, especially in the corporate worship service, that's a place where you're modeling to your children what it means to come together as the body of Christ and worship Christ together. That's important for them to see and be able to participate in and talk about and instruct them on why we do what we do. So,
absolutely.
I got one other question here, and then I'm sort of done with my questions. But what are some ways that a church attender, church member can encourage their worship pastor or worship leader?
Oh, that's a great question. Show up. That'd be the first thing. Show up early.
That's a good one.
Second thing.
That encourages the preaching pastor and the elders as well.
Yes, it does. As someone who's always looking out on a congregation, you'd be amazed what kind of countenances people can have, I think, without knowing it. So I would say just be aware of, a natural response to the things you're singing, which means you have to think about the things you're singing. So one of the ways you encourage them, think about the things you're singing. Think about the words, and then respond naturally. At the very least, if you're not a hand raiser, which I would encourage you to be, but if you're not, just at least a face that registers the reality of the truths that you're singing. Singing loud, singing out as the congregation is singing. So those would be some of the things. I mean, when I'm in a group, whatever it might be, a concert or, I will regularly get people come up to me and my family and say, "Oh, we're so glad you were here." Why is that? Well, because you just are so expressive. You're so engaged. It's a great encouragement, when someone's standing in front of a group of people, encouraging them to, magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. And they seem to be actually doing it. So that's one way you can encourage them. And then after a service, what encourages me is to hear people say, that song you picked, God really used it to minister to me. Those words, this phrase, just specific pointing to truth. Because, every week you're picking songs, you're picking scriptures that you hope God will use to serve people's hearts. So when someone comes back to you and says, this really, God really used this to meet me, to speak to me, that's so encouraging. Or it could be more broadly, I just love the way that every week you faithfully choose songs that are going to enable, God's Spirit to speak to us, to exalt Christ. And I just want to thank you for that. I get fed every week through the singing. Stuff like that. It would be hugely encouraging.
That's great. Yeah. And I mean, just to your point about singing out and being loud and expressive, like men need to step up and lead in that. You know, that's an aspect of family shepherding, family discipleship that's taking place. Your family will follow the lead of the husband and father. And if you model that, I think guys in particular tend to be less emotionally expressive, especially when it comes to worship. But having your kids see a smile on your face or your hand raised in the air, whatever that might look like for you, that you're shepherding your family, you're shepherding other people around you, you're helping to build up other people. And there's such an importance in men in particular, where it may becomes a little bit more difficultly leading in that area.
Yeah. Which is ridiculous. I mean, it's just sad. I go back to Psalm 108. My heart is steadfast, O Lord. I will sing and make melody.
Yeah.
With all my being. If you can't do that with all your being, your heart's not steadfast.
I've heard people I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all. Oh,
I've heard people say like, I'm kind of a masculine dude. I don't like to sing. I was like, David killed lions with his bare hands. Like, he slayed his tens of thousands. You don't get much more manly than David.
Yeah,
and he's like laying on his bed at night singing to God. And bulk of the Psalter was written by him. Like, come on, don't give me that.
Look, Paul and Barnabas were in prison at midnight in stocks singing hymns.
Yeah, because Paul was a weenie.
What a loser. Oh, yeah. No, that argument doesn't hold water.
Yeah, I think of Psalm 63, oh God, you are my God, earnestly I seek you, my soul thirsts for you, my flesh faints for you. Like, if that's the reality of what is in our heart, that has to express itself physically and externally in some form. And so if those are the realities, music is a conduit to do that. So we need to enjoy that. Like, it's a joy to sing. So just accept, I think for a lot of us, some of it's just accepting that God's used or has ordained that this would be the way in which our joy is expressed back to him.
Well, and it serves us. I mean, it's not just a command. It serves us. It is for our good.
Yeah.
God never gives us commands that are bad for us. And so singing does really affect our souls. We may have to do it for a while before we understand that, but it's both a conduit of what we feel and a way of drawing out what we should feel.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna end there, Bob. Again, just thank you so much for your time and being willing to come on and speak to us and speak to our audience. So we really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, guys, for what you're doing. I really appreciate it. And I hope that what we talked about today serves those who are listening.
All right, so manly men sing.
It's a hard thing for manly men to grasp because our culture has it's not it's like sensualized music to this point where it almost, the masculinity in men like reject that, like ugh. Like I feel that when I look at popular music and the way that they're singing it, and even the way they write songs. They're writing songs for real high tenor singers. If you're a tenor singer, I'm not after you. But sometimes music needs to be written. Like, I've been listening to this guy. His name is John Mark McMillan.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that guy's got a really deep baritone bass voice, and you can listen to his songs, and you're like, oh, this is a manly song. And
the content matters too.
Right.
Like, so like, the Jesus is my boyfriend music. Like,
right.
I want to sit on your lap and stroke your beard, right. Jesus.
And all those songs are kind of written the same too.
Exactly.
So the repetition, I also think, turns people off to music too. So like, having songs that are well written, that aren't the Jesus is my boyfriend, if you're talking about it within the Christian realm, but even popular songs are written more aimed at women than they are at men. So it makes it hard when you talk about these things for people to say. I hear a lot of guys say, I'm not a music guy. I just don't connect with that. And it's like, you are, if you're a Christian. You've just not been listening to or been exposed to the type of music that Bob's talking about or I'm talking about or whatever it is.
I come to the garden alone. The dew is still on the roses.
Okay, careful. That's a hymn. You got to be careful with those.
He walks with me and he talks with me and he just whispers sweet nothings in my ear. What does he say? He tells me I'm his own. It's
That's a bad one.
So
I think like guys hear that song. Are they in the like that song sung in church or some of like what's that one that Bethel did that Crowder did a remake of with the sloppy? He loves me. He loves.
Oh,
us.
how he loves me.
Like. I'm sorry.
It's not untrue.
It's not untrue, but the way
that it's expressed is
a turnoff, I think.
Like sappy emotionalism versus like the type of expression of God's love that we see in the Bible.
I don't think a lot of the songs that we're singing are untrue. Like some of them go too far and they centralize the relationship between us and God. But a lot of the songs that turn men off aren't untrue, but they're not well done,
or they're incredibly superficial to the point where they're.
That's what I mean though by they're not well done. They're not thought out. They're just let's just repeat this a whole bunch of times and try to create this hysteria of a feeling. And I think to manly men, that's just like ugh. Yeah. I reject that.
Exactly. Well, I think to men in general, I think there's some guys that are maybe more inclined toward that type of music than others would be, but I mean, for the most part, the way that I don't know, this is another show. We're gonna do another show on this. It's not gonna be centralized on singing. But we need to do a show on like Christian masculinity.
We need to do one on that. We need to do maybe we'll do a follow-up show to this one on how worship is expressed in the believer's life in more ways than just Song's one way in which it expresses itself.
Well, and then Bob said something else like God's commands serve us.
Yeah.
And that's another one that I think is worth fleshing out a little bit. So thanks for all the show content, Bob.
We've got lots of fodder.
We appreciate it. So anyway, you can, we're part of the Bark Podcast Network. We didn't say that at the intro, but we are. And hey, there's a big thing going on right now with this conference that's trying to deal with homosexuality in the church and look at how we should be thinking about that. It's called the Revoice Conference. And guys like Al Mohler have written their concerns on it and the way it conflates secular language of sexual identity with biblical language of our true identity and some of the issues that might come from that. And so the guys at Just Thinking just did a podcast last week. By the time you listen to this, it'll be last week. Thinking about the Revoice Conference. It's worth checking out. You need to check that out. So you can go to thebarbpodcast.com and check that out. You can find us on the Pastor Discussions podcast on Facebook. We are on pastordiscussions.com. You can email us at pastordiscussions@gmail.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail at a number that we don't say anymore because nobody does it, but it's on our website.
It is on our website.
It is on our website.
So call us.
What are we doing next week? What do we want to do next week? Do we have a plan for next week?
I thought we did. We might need to go through
at one point
notes.
we did.
Yeah.
We need to go through notes. We'll figure out what we're going to do next week.
So it'll be a surprise.
We'll be back, though, next Monday.
We'll have the right spelling this next week, too. So.
Yes, thank you, Chris. We love you. Yeah. And we were talking about it.
Chris Sinclair and Chris Hughes.
Chris.
Yeah, it's Chris and Chris. We know you guys both listen to
Chris
the show because you guys both comment. We want to do a show where you guys are both on with us. So
we don't know what we're going to talk about yet.
Yeah.
But we just thought it'd be a cool title to have Chris and Chris.
Yeah. So it'll be the one with Chris and Chris.
The one with Chris and Chris.
So we got to set that up and get that done.
Yeah.
So it's coming up.
Well, we don't know that. I think they might not want to do it.
They'll do it. There's no way they won't do it.
Or we won't let you listen anymore.
We'll coerce them into it.
Coerce? You're going to coerce them into this? Oh, man. All right. So I think we're done.
Okay. Well, join us next week for our next conversation on the Pastor Discussions podcast, your weekly conversation on doctrine, faith, and the Christian life.